Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by sweet Chauncey Kovacs from the internet.
I am sweet Chauncey Kovacs from the internet.
And of course, from the other internet, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and if you gotta go with a smile.
Well,
I mean, why so serious? I mean, why doesn't any of this Joker's lines jump out at me?
Well, we'll talk a little bit about that today in our review of Joker. It's not the Joker, everybody, just Joker. No article.
No
involved.
article.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to be doing that one today. And but first, before we get started and everything, do want to thank everyone because it is the right around the top of the month here. And as such, we'd like to say a big, giant thank you to everyone that supports the show over at patreon.com/HMP. There you get the pre-show, post-show, and of course, the Dinger Zone. And, listen, I know you're thinking, like, I don't know, what about the Dinger Zone? What's going to bring me in? This week, we get to hear about Bruce's acting exploits. So if you'd like to check that out, patreon.com/HMP. Boy, oh boy, we got a lot of stuff to cover here. I think I want to do this first. Before we get into this, let's go ahead and give, let's get Bruce's comic book connection, and then we'll kind of go into the movie, because my guess is we got a lot to talk about today, so let's do it.
Hit it, Tony.
Man, Tony's on the ball this week.
Now,
Yeah.
I'll say this, though, before you get going, Bruce. Sean, what do you think the over-under is on number of times Alan Moore is mentioned in this comic book connection?
Oh, man, 3.
Okay, let's do
3.5. Let's make it fair.
3.5.
3.5.
All right.
Oh,
Do you
this will
think
be
he's
good.
going under or
Oh,
over?
he's going over that. Are you kidding me?
Who's
Yeah, you
keeping
think-
track? Who's going to count? Is there a dinger, like a little dinger that we can ding off every time it comes up? Do you have a bell?
Tony, do
sound
you have
effect?
a bell, Tony? You know what? I'll do it.
Okay.
I'm like, Tony wasn't ready for this. Look at him. The look on his face is like, I wasn't prepared for this crap.
You can
Tight
tell by
pants,
how tight his
Tony.
pants are. The bell's not in his pocket.
That Tony, what a dresser.
Well, of all the A-list characters from DC Comics lore, the one with perhaps the most cinematic of origins is the Joker. Though Bill Finger received the creator credit, it was Jerry Robinson and Bill Finger who conceived the Joker. Robinson's initial inspiration came from the simple Joker card from a standard deck of playing cards. He then went on to envision a supreme arch-villain who could test Batman, similar to the relationship between Sherlock Holmes and Professor Moriarty. He also wanted something memorable like the Hunchback of Notre Dame or any other villains that had these unique physical characteristics. And this is when Bill Finger produced a picture of Gwynplaine, a man with a disfigured face giving him a perpetual grin. This was a character not from the Hunchback of Notre Dame, but another Victor Hugo story that had been adapted to a silent film called The Man Who Laughs. Though Gwynplaine was largely forgotten, his visage became iconic as that of the Joker. Though a loosely kept secret for decades, DC has recently embraced the now in public domain character with the creation of The Batman Who Laughs, a villainous Bruce Wayne from the dark multiverse who sports his own Gwynplaine rictus grin. But as concrete as the Joker's real-world origin story is, the character's comic book origin has been famously mysterious. Detective Comics number 168 in 1951 introduced the Joker's first origin story as Red Hood, a criminal who, during his final heist, vanishes after leaping into a vat of chemicals to escape Batman. This bare-bones origin still leaves plenty of mystery about who the man was before he put on the hood, though at least one story suggests he was a school janitor. The vagueness remained largely intact until 1988. Okay, get that bell ready. When Alan Moore wrote The Killing Joke, a story that was entirely intended to be an Elseworld story and not a part of the proper DC continuity. However, it was so widely read and embraced that against Moore's, go ahead and ding it again,
Ding.
wishes, it became canon. The Killing Joke tells of a sad sack stand-up comedian who is not at all successful. He is struggling to make ends meet, and when he finds out his wife is pregnant, he is manipulated into donning the red hood and proceeds to have one bad day that forever transforms him into the clown prince of crime. Moore, you can ding it again,
Dang.
does leave a thin thread of plausible deniability to the origin story, having Joker reveal himself as an unreliable narrator by stating if he must have a past, he preferred to be multiple choice. Now, this hasn't stopped others from doing one of two things, either accepting Alan Moore's, there's number 4,
Dang.
origin as fact, or trying to create an origin for the character of their own. Tim Burton may have been the first to give the Joker a name, Jack Napier, who usurped the role of Joe Chill in The Murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne. The Jack Napier moniker was used very recently in the out-of-continuity Sean Murphy story, The White Knight, in which Jack Napier becomes Gotham's hero. Bruno Heller and his company of Gotham producers and showrunners introduced a character into Gotham named Jerome, who is not the Joker, but is totally the Joker in every way. Case Study, a Paul Dini, Alex Ross story, describes the Joker as a sadistic gangster who creates the Red Hood identity to continue the thrill of small-time criminality. There was once even a storyline that suggested the Joker was the Pale Man, an immortal chaos entity that was once jester of an Egyptian pharaoh and lived on to torment the rule makers of every generation. In 1995, the Trickster said, quote, "When villains want to scare each other, they tell Joker stories," end quote. And despite having no innate superpowers, it's hard to deny that the Joker has become the supreme and easily most well-known of all comic book villains. Portrayed on film by such great actors as Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, and Jared Leto, all 3 are Academy Award winners, unlike Joaquin Phoenix, who so far has only been nominated thrice. But the question remains, when it comes to the Joker's origin, do moviegoers want the concrete or prefer something that's a bit more multiple choice?
Well, according
4.
to this box office, 4. I'll say this, though, Sean. Amazing odds making you got going right there. That's not too shabby. I'll be honest with you. I think a lesser man, and I'm saying myself as that, I would have guessed a much higher number, quite frankly, but you had it pretty spot on there. Good job.
3.5. That's where you bet. Everybody wins. It's either 3 or 4.
Pretty good. But I always, before we get into the movie itself, I do want to talk about that for half a second here, because I think that's one of the big elements in, all of this, comic bookdom, if you will, is this kind of Joker origin story. And I'll be honest with you, when I was younger, I didn't like the idea of this is what this is the story. I like the anonymity of it all. But the more time marches on, the more we get these different kind of one-off stories and everything, the more I really embrace that idea and kind of go with it. And this movie kind of does all that. So let's get into it a little bit here. Here is the trailer for Joker.
What's your name?
My name's Arthur.
Well, there's something special about you, Arthur, I can tell. Where you from?
I live right here in the city with my mother. She says I was put here to spread joy and laughter.
What's so funny?
She always tells me to smile and put on a happy face.
Rated R.
All right, that was the trailer for Joker, and here is the IMDb plotline. As we know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. A gritty character study of Arthur Fleck, a man disregarded by society. This is directed by Todd Phillips, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Robert De Niro, Zazie Beetz, Francis Conroy, and more. So let's get into it. The number 1 movie of the weekend here, and nothing happened as far as I'm aware.
Biggest opening for a movie in August ever, or in October ever.
Pretty big.
Did I read that?
I believe so. So let's get some general impressions and then kind of get into the thing itself here. I'll start off. I had thoroughly enjoyed this film. I've seen it twice at this point, and
wow.
I almost saw it a third time last night, but it was just way too late when work got out, and I was just like, I'm not starting this thing at 3 o'clock in the morning and getting home by 6. So I pumped the brakes on that a little bit. But I've seen it twice, and I've had such a great time with it. And how much did you guys know about this going in? Did you guys watch a lot of the trailers or anything like that?
I saw a trailer or two, and I thought that from the trailers, I knew what they were going to do, vaguely, broad strokes, but I didn't know just how much they were going to do it till I saw it. I mean, you see the trailers, you get the idea, okay, this is going to kind of try to give us a dead giveaway is that Martin Scorsese was the first director attached to it, and then later on a producer. But I was like, okay, they're going to give us a classic, late 70s, early 80s Scorsese film with the Joker. But I didn't know how self-aware they would be about making a Scorsese film with the Joker, and how much they would lean into it, and how much I would like them being self-aware and leaning into it.
I knew quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
I'd seen all the trailers.
I will say I had no idea De Niro was in the movie till I saw it.
Oh wow, really?
Oh wow, okay. Even I knew that.
I knew a lot about it, and I kept hearing things like all the political hot button. Which can we get into that for a second?
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I
I don't
think
know.
it's almost impossible not to kind of talk about some of that because it's there. It's on Front Street.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't know how much of that is manufactured and how much of that is real. Because it sure feels like there's a bit of manufacturing happen with the politicalness of this movie. My just so that everybody knows where I fall on this, I think that when you're making movies, when you're making whatever it is artistically, you can say whatever you want. It's up to you whether or not you want to see that movie, but you can definitely do whatever you want. And just because you don't like what that movie is trying to say or what that movie has said, that doesn't necessarily like this isn't a manual on how to be somebody who is who's got some health issues, some mental health issues, and then kill a bunch of people. That is not what this movie is.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's some people who are treating it as such, and it's not that. It's a movie about a guy who is Batman's archenemy. That is literally what this movie is. It is taken more seriously because it is a more grounded movie. But make no mistake about it, this is a guy who dresses as a clown and kills people. That is what this movie is, and it's fine. I like this movie. I think it's a good movie. But the two things that make me crazy about it are everybody putting their political 2 cents into this thing. That is not what this movie is for. And the second thing is the people who are the people who want this to be almost like a love letter to mentally handicapped people. And that's not what this movie is. This movie is not made for that. This is Batman's villain. It is a comic book movie. Let's stop trying to separate the masses and let's just enjoy something for once.
Well,
and also I think you got to go into it too with a little bit of like the preacher technique, where you understand this is its own thing. You can't get too uptight about how this might ruin your favorite stories where Batman and the Joker interact, and the fact that we see the Joker becoming a formed entity when Bruce Wayne is still a kid. There's a lot of stuff here that if you want to be the comic book guy, you can poo-poo it all day long, but you just got to let that go and say, I got the essence of who the Joker is. I want to see this person's option on how he might have gotten there. Like anytime you're seeing something with the Joker origin story, you just have to remember those immortal words of, if I'm going to have a past, I want it to be multiple choice. And you just imagine like the Joker has you tied up in a chair and he's telling you this is how he started. And you know what, this is almost certainly not how he started if this is what he's telling me, but I can still enjoy a good story.
And that's what's great. The other part, this is the other part that is driving me nuts, is that everybody's so worried that somebody's going to go into the movie theater and kill a bunch of people. What is troubling is that because it's not happening, media is saying, hey, no one shot up a movie theater yet, almost like they want them to. Like, come on, let's go.
Well, it's interesting.
Why don't one of you nerds kill a bunch of people in the movie theater?
I went Thursday night to see the movie, and I'd actually seen it Wednesday night previously, so I'd actually gone out of my second time seeing it.
Humble brag.
It's important because I'd seen it, and I'd had a lot of time to digest and everything. I think that's really what I'm more getting at, is that, But as I was walking out, I saw, somebody from news, and I worked in news for a decade. I actually happened to work at the place that this gentleman worked at. I asked him questions about people that were working there, and he asked me if I'd seen the movie. I told him I had. And so, I went on, and a lot of it was just like I was really excoriating the media. You can imagine that most of my stuff didn't get in there. But it's really on them. They've kind of created this thing that was never really there until they decided to kind of wish it into being, and that's what's more disturbing than anything. And
the media created this idea, and the thing that they really built on was imagery of the unfortunate Aurora incident in Colorado with the Dark Knight Rises.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And kind of the guy did color his hair crazy. Maybe he thought of himself as some kind of comic book villain, but I think that same kid in that same disturbed individual in a post MCU world is, if he's, because I think he went to the Dark Knight Rises because he knew it was a packed house. I don't think it was specifically the movie. I think that probably warped his perception a little bit, but I think the modern day disturbed kid is probably trying to, I don't know, maybe trying to show up with his Infinity Gauntlet and a bunch of weapons or something. I don't think that it's specifically this character. I think that this is a character that was in the kid's head when he was disturbed. I think they're getting the cause and effect kind of backwards from, the way these things sort of work.
Well, and ultimately, to me, I thought a lot of that really is kind of a big crux of the movie is you made these people, the whole point is the media made, Joker this way. With all these things to go through. I do want to say this before we get started, just as a nice blanket statement, because I know we get a lot of new listeners whenever we have a big giant review and everything. There will be full spoilers for Joker here on out, just so you know. If you haven't seen it, there you go.
And there are probably going to be spoilers for some movies that are in the 30 to 40-year-old range, too, as we're talking about this. Just want to get that out front, too, because I can't talk about this movie without spoiling at least two other classic movies, one from 78, one from 83. So you've been warned. But I want to kind of get out in front by discussing two big things at once. We're talking about the political implications and just kind of an analogy or a for instance that I just wanted to build on what I said. It's not that this person is obsessed with this character and a movie pops up, but they become obsessed with something because the movie's popping up. And that's like saying that if Jodie Foster hadn't been in Taxi Driver, that John Hinckley Jr. wouldn't have shot Ronald Reagan. I mean, what would have happened is he would have become obsessed with whoever was in that movie in Jodie Foster's place. You follow me?
If you're Chapman, what's your go-to if she's not available?
If who's not available?
Jodie Foster. Jodie Foster doesn't exist. Who's Hinckley goes after
Tatum O'Neal.
Bert.
Well, that's not bad. Either or.
I'm gonna go Bert. Bert and Ernie.
Oh yeah, Bert. Yeah, it works.
You guys seen that new Farmers commercial? The Farmers insurance commercial where all of the Sesame Street characters are on there talking to J.K. Simmons.
I don't think
I haven't seen that one.
It's amazing for this reason alone. Bert, very handsome, wearing a 3-piece suit. Very handsome indeed. I'm sorry. Continue.
But anyway, let's get into it. I made my point.
All right. So it's a brown suit. Go ahead, man.
Double-breasted?
Of course it's double-breasted. It's Bert. He's a man.
It's true.
Well, do we just want to start off then talk a little bit about the Scorsese effect in this movie? I mean, the homage is the only term I think is appropriate. I mean, it's not even inspired by. There's some direct homage here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete lavish recreation of Scorsese in the 70s.
Yeah, and New York in that time period too, because Gotham City, pretty much generally accepted Gotham City is the bad parts of New York and not the good parts. And I think Bernard Goetz, the subway shooter, killed 4 people on the subway like 1983 or something. I think that's kind of a big through line here too with how the Joker scene goes down in the subway. I think Taxi. I honestly think Taxi Driver and of course King of Comedy are the other two things that are being repainted here in this portrait. And it doesn't, it makes that pretty clear too when they cast Robert De Niro in the movie. You know, they have Travis Bickle in the King of Comedy. You know, he's playing the Jerry Lewis role this time around.
How
Yeah.
much
He's in the
do
movie.
you think? How much do you think that Todd Phillips high-fived all the people around him when De Niro agreed to take the role?
I'm sure it was I can't believe he said yes to this. He should
I
say
know.
no to this. Everything says that Robert De Niro would look at that and just be like, no, why would I do that? I've done that before.
It's better than Dirty Grandpa or whatever that movie was.
I don't know. He got to.
Did
got
you
to
actually
pal-
watch that movie? I've never seen that.
I've
movie.
seen-
I haven't seen it.
I've seen it, and I'll tell you this: he got to pal around with some Aubrey Plaza. I think old Robert De Niro was a-okay with doing that flick. I would have been.
Yeah, I get it now.
Yeah, it was 1984 when Bernard Goetz shot 4 people on a subway as a vigilante. So, yeah, just giving us our dates. So
But-
that's about the time in New York they're looking at here.
Yeah, I love how it starts off, and you can kind of hear it in the radio, and like this is the first time that they've really said, we've got a reason why there's trash on the street for production design, as opposed to just having its litter of the place. They like the city is kind of shutting down. They're not even collecting trash anymore. Everything like this is a city that is on a super fast decline right down the hill.
Yeah, 1980s New York. Once again, it had this
The
horrible
real New
budget
York
crisis.
before it all got Disneyfied.
Yeah,
Well, they had such
garbage.
a horrible budget crisis. They had to cut their police force so severely that I think between 10 at night and 7 in the morning, there was 0 police on the subway, and crime and this sounds like something from a Joker movie, but like an actual truth in the New York subway, a guy some people just poured gasoline in a ticket booth and burned the ticket taker inside the booth, and he couldn't get out.
My
Like
God.
that's a real thing that happened in 1980s New York. So that's
the
kind
end
of the
days. It sounds like.
yeah, that's the era we're dealing with here. And that's when movies like Death Wish were suddenly like super popular.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
So where are we going with this? Where are we going with this? We want to talk about people's performances. What do we want to do?
Well, I the first thing I just wanted to do is just jump out there with the Scorsese hand in all this. And Scorsese as a producer, but I think we got some Travis Bickle in the Joker's kind of warped perception of reality for at least for a little while. I don't know if he pictures himself as a savior or what. And then there's the whole King of Comedy through line that plays pretty heavily too, only turns out a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Just a touch.
What do we think? So what do we think of Robert De Niro? How do you think he was in this?
I think he seemed exactly like what I would picture his counterpart, a 1980s late night host being, and that doesn't necessarily speak well of Robert De Niro, but for his like kind of recent performances, I think it was a good role for him.
Yeah,
I think it was good for him to have that role. I kind of believed it.
He's got a lot of of that stupid kind of late night patter and everything, and that was something I was a little bit concerned about and everything. But once we kind of get towards the end and everything, and he does have the more serious moments, really let me know that obviously what he was doing there on screen was for acting purposes for his television program and whatnot. Yeah, I thought it was really good. I was surprised at how good it was, because De Niro, while one of the greatest of all time, past couple years, you hit or miss, man. You never know.
Phoning it in, baby.
Yeah, and it did kind of make me think this is probably what would have happened if 30 years after the ending of The King of Comedy, that De Niro's character was still hosting a late night show. He'd probably be like this.
Oh,
Like he was
wow. I never
successful.
even put that together. That's exactly right. I
Yeah,
didn't put that together.
If you remember the ending of that movie,
yeah, he's just pointing at people at the end. Yeah, I forgot about that.
His lunatic plan actually worked out.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. What do you think? What do you want to bet now that Robert De Niro just smells like your old Italian uncle?
Oh, of course.
I never really noticed it until this movie, where you're looking at him and you're like, I guarantee he smells like an old guy uncle at this point.
A marinara
Yeah, and he's
sauce
like
and
one of those
cigars.
guys that after he shaves, he doesn't do a good job of getting all the shaving cream off his face. So like 3:00 in the afternoon, he's got that little white spot on his jawline. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. To me, like what I liked about this was that it was that Taxi Driver meets King of Comedy. But I always told people when I was kind of describing it to them, done in a very operatic, balletic way as well, with a smashing. Oh well, good job, Skype. With a smattering of comic book in there as well.
Yeah.
And just one more time, and then I'll shut up about the King of Comedy. But when was the last time you guys watched the King of Comedy? About how long?
Man, it was the 90s. It's been a long time.
It's maybe 10 years or so.
Because
I need it on Blu-ray.
I probably watched it within the last 10 years. I don't know exactly when, but I'm going to say I don't think it's all that great now. So I'll leave that there for whatever that's worth.
Jerry Lewis's performance
so
is
the
very
guy
weird.
who likes Hasselhoff's, Nick Shield, agent of Nick Fury, agent of Shield, not a fan, not a fan of King of Comedy.
I'm on the record.
All right,
just letting people know.
Duly
just in
noted.
case.
Silas, when you're listening to this in 30 years, I want you to remember what your dad said.
We tried. We tried.
Yeah, not as good as you remember. Go ahead.
So, Adam, you said that you've seen this twice and you almost saw it 3 times.
Yeah.
I can't help but think that this movie feels like Depression the movie.
Oh, listen, do not get me wrong. This is not a fun movie. This is not like, let's have a blast and go watch it. But there is something, I'm sure you've heard this term before, like the beautiful ugly.
Sure, of course.
There's a lot of that in
it became popular during American Beauty, if you remember.
Oh, yeah. So, well, there you go. That makes sense. I was like, 19 when that flick came out, or 18 when that flick came out, so it all makes sense. But there's a bit of that there. I guess it's like the blues. When you listen to blues music, you tend to actually feel better.
And it's also got this sort of depressing through current to it that goes with any time you're watching a movie, reading a book, any kind of television show where your central character, your protagonist, is not a good person. I mean, there's not anything redeeming here. Like even in Taxi Driver, when Travis Bickle is certifiably insane and he's really making wrong decisions, he still goes and like shoots up all the pimps and does something good, but there's not a single good thing that the Joker does. And that's a real challenge in making a movie about somebody that's, other than a horror movie. But even in the horror movie, the monster dies at the end, even though he comes back, in the next sequel. I mean, we're watching a movie that's really well made and a compelling story, but it is about somebody who is just, you should in no way admire this guy.
I've got to tell you, because here's my take on this movie, is that it's a very good movie. But I'm probably never going to see this movie again, because it is very, very depressing. And on top of that, it has the thing that I can't stand, which is there's moments in this movie where, forgive my language here, it makes me want to crawl up my own ass at certain times when you're watching this thing. And it's just so hard to watch in points. And there's certain times where you're just like, so are we just going to watch this guy get kicked in the balls for 2 hours? That's really what it feels like at times.
Yeah.
Well,
and
to me, a lot of
it also has this problem where Joaquin Phoenix does such a good job of selling the incompetent Arthur Fleck that it's hard for me to believe him ever, no matter what he does, ever becoming a true match for Batman. Like, he's got to get all his criminalness in before Batman gets a hold of him. Like, this is a guy that gets 1 or 2 murders done, and Batman apprehends him and back to Arkham.
Yeah.
This is not somebody who can match. I just don't see competence anywhere in this character in any small way.
Well,
there's no chess moves by this guy.
I think that may be a problem as to how you're interpreting this, because this movie to me is not about the Joker as we know him. This is I know I'm being a kind of a D-bag when I do all this, but whatever. This is not about the Joker. This movie is about Arthur Fleck and Arthur Fleck's literal transformation into the Joker. And I think really from this moment on is when we start to get the Joker that, we all probably know, or at least the more origin of that. I don't think that happens right away. And you're right. I mean, if Batman was to go up against this guy, he'd be done in 2 seconds. But I think, once he's reached that, that final crescendo and everything, and he's really lost to the other side, I think that's where some weird sort of madness thing can happen. And again, it's, your credits roll. They're probably never going to make another one of these again, and now we can, speculate till the cows come home. But that's how I see it.
I disagree with you. I think that probably what their move is going to be, because if they do make another Joker movie, it'll be something vastly different from what we saw here. But it's made so much money, and it's such a smart idea that we're either going to see something like every one of his rogues gallery people, villains have their own movie, or
that's what I think.
Yeah. Or we're going to see a different Joker.
That's almost an interesting idea. Let's say we build up the backlog of villains and then bring the superhero. We've never done that before. That's an interesting take. I like that.
Well, I just don't. I don't think we're going to see Joaquin Phoenix's Joker again. And if we do, I don't think we're going to see Joaquin Phoenix's Joker against Batman. Like, this is Earth 274. Like, this is an Earth that this Joker lives on that is not the Earth that's going to be in any other Batman or Joker movies. I mean, I just think that they've gone out of their way to do a really good job to tell a really good story, and they can't undermine that by having a sequel later where he is as capable and diabolical as the Heath Ledger Joker. I mean, that's not what this story's about. This is a guy that accidentally fell into being the Joker in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Beaten into submission by life. I do kind of like a couple of the points in this character story here. I like the idea that his mother was nuts too, and she was obsessed with Thomas Wayne, and introducing this whole question of, is Thomas Wayne his father or not? Something that he pursues, and the story seems to make it pretty clear that no, he's not. But also the Joker's adopted, so we don't know who his father is. So how about the sequel where he gets his adoption papers and some lady of the night was making $20 with Thomas Wayne and actually did have his child, and it is the Joker, and he is Batman's. I mean, there's all kinds of craziness they can do with the 3 levels of vagueness at the beginning. His mother's.
Bruce, I don't think there's any way that they come back to this stuff.
No,
I don't think that they will in the form that we're seeing here. But it would not shock me if there wasn't like a Black Label Joker comic book trying to build on the success of this.
Oh, for sure.
And that's the kind of thing they could do there.
Yes.
Yeah, I should have made that part clear. I'm talking about in the story world, not in the movie world.
Gotcha.
But I do like that they introduced the insanity of his mother, so we don't have any clue at all what she's trying to say. And then also the fact that if she was telling the truth, Thomas Wayne is the kind of person who could make her look insane.
And can we talk about Frances Conroy for a second, who plays the mom?
Mm-hmm.
Please, let's do.
At this point now, if you need a crazy old white lady, Frances Conroy, she has multiple versions of crazy old white lady. So she's your go-to at this point now, yeah?
Oh, absolutely, man. And she definitely sells it. People, I didn't know who the casting was beyond Joaquin Phoenix. So I had some real in the theater, and I went to see this all by myself, so there was nobody to be like shocked with. I mean,
I wasn't with your own money.
But it was a crowded theater, but my family wasn't with me.
I saw it by myself with my own money.
Yeah, but anyway,
that I worked for.
I didn't know Zazie Beetz was in here.
Oh yeah.
And when Zazie Beetz shows up, you guys know I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Domino from Deadpool 2.
I think you just like saying Zazie Beetz. I think that's almost like 50% of it for you is just saying her name.
And the way that whole thing goes down with the two of them, how about we talk about that a little bit?
What I think Bruce really wants to get to with Zazie Beetz is like 20 years from now, he's going to be able to turn to somebody and go, "Hey, remember Zazie Beetz? Whatever happened to her?"
Yeah.
This literally.
I'll be Evil Knieveling a movie in 20 years, and that's going to be my go-to for every female role.
I love it.
How about we Zazie Beetz this sucker up?
Yeah. Oh, man. But anyway, her character, she's the very attractive single mom living in the same dump tenement as the Joker and his mom is. And of course he's smitten with her and he stalks her a little bit and talk about, maybe people are worried about the movie sending the wrong message. He stalks her and it kind of works out in his favor, or at least it seems that way. They go out on dates. Now, the whole time that storyline is going on, I'm not buying it at all because, number one, Zazie Beetz got plenty of options, okay? She doesn't have to settle for the weird dude that lives with his mom next door. She's got plenty of options. I can guarantee that. And then on top of that, it's just like like when she says, I work at the bank, I thought you were going to rob it. And, I have a gun, I can. And the whole shoot yourself in the head, and she laughs at it. Like, I'm just not buying that storyline at all. And how, this guy is just too weird. He's just too weird for somebody who is not either very weird or very broken to become attached to. Now, I could see if maybe her father died because he was mentally ill and nobody took care of him and he committed suicide, and she's trying to make up for that with this guy, but they don't introduce any element of that. So later in the movie, when that's all revealed to be a delusion, I'm very happy about that because I just wasn't this was a really good movie where I just wasn't going with that storyline that Zazie Beetz and Arthur would actually have a relationship. But then at the same time, as soon as that, I'd say as soon as that pin gets pulled from the hand grenade, then suddenly you don't know if anything you have seen is real or matters.
Isn't that great?
Follow me?
That's actually my favorite part of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you have no idea if what you're seeing is real or not. And it's the part that they do the best, in my opinion.
You could literally even get down to the end and be like, no, this is this is clearly, this could be all in his head still.
You know what it reminds me of most? It reminds me of Exit Through the Gift Shop, which I think I've brought up before on this show.
Except this is not painted as a documentary.
No, but I mean,
true.
it is.
Painted,
but it is the
son of
same.
a-
It is the same thought where
Yeah.
it's like you cannot trust a single thing that you're watching now.
Mm-hmm.
But that whole idea that you just brought up there, I think Adam was who brought it up. If they do ever have this Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker meet Batman, I think it's gonna have to undercut this whole movie where it's revealed that was all just a thought he had in his head in Arkham. Maybe even he doesn't remember how he got to Arkham. And then that sort of undercuts this movie if you allow a movie that could I'm not the kind of person that will let a part 2 that's awful ruin a part 1 for me,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if they ever want him to actually hold his own with Robert Pattinson Batman, that they're gonna have to pull the trigger on that little out that was put in here, and it probably won't be Todd Phillips directing the movie that does that. Probably, maybe if they throw a bunch of money at Joaquin Phoenix and he wants to do another one. But I think they have to pull the trigger on that where, well, that wasn't quite what happened. That's just the daydream he was having before he murdered, the person that the lady, I don't know if she's a therapist or what, but, he comes out with the bloody footprints and then the orderlies are chasing him around. So whenever they decide to make the sequel, they're going to open up with that scene and we're going to see Margot Robbie pop up and stab her in the neck and start laughing and he runs away. Something stupid like that.
Oh, I hope not.
That sounds.
I really hope
that
it doesn't
sounds
go
something
that bad.
as stupid as they would do over there.
Well, hold on a second now, because keep in mind this is a DC movie, and now we have gotten 3 in a row that are
good.
done well.
And this one, I think, lays down a new blueprint. I mean, as long as they stay diversified, I think they're going to have more success than when they were really trying to brute force the shared universe.
Yeah.
I think Aquaman. I think Wonder Woman was sort of the accidental hit. It was a hit in spite of what DC as a whole was trying to do.
Yeah.
And then Aquaman kind of took off when, people thought that was dead in the water, pun fully intended, before it ever started filming.
None taken.
And then Shazam, just this fun little kids movie, and the door's open enough that we can make it in universe or out of universe. This Joker movie, rated R, really, really dark, really its own self-contained movie. I mean, this is something that you could just take and make and be successful and then move on. So I think maybe they do need some black label movies, if you'll call it that, because they've got their black label comics now.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Also maybe throw an Elseworlds on there. I'm not sure, but I do like the idea of let's just try to make a good movie, and what works, and we'll pull it together when we want to pull it together, instead of hey, let's do exactly what Marvel did, just worse.
Yeah, well, and part of the thing is like that, in a sense, is what Marvel did. They're like, we're going to make our own we're going to make these movies. We want them to be good movies. And then when time came, they put it together. It's like, it took you guys a decade to figure out what Marvel did, like, almost at the get of go.
Plus, there was some secret sauce here too. Number one, super low budget, like 55 million. I've seen as the low end, 60 million as the high end. So super low budget for a studio like Warner Brothers. $60 million disappears in their accounting all the time. So, this is like no risk, and 60 million, including the salaries, or I don't know if you call it a salary, but including the payments, the fees for some high profile actors. So this was not an expensive movie to make, even though it was a period piece, and those tend to be a little more expensive. You pay your actors, you pay your director, you pay your cameramen, and you're not doing CGI. You got a few effects at the end, but you don't need a whole lot. The makeup, I went to Spirit Halloween. I could get that makeup, for not that much money. And that's the secret sauce. So they got to think, what's another non-super powered character that you can make a standalone R-rated film that, and you can't just keep doing Scorsese. Who do you do next? Who's the next person you harken back to? Right. I think maybe a Francis Ford Coppola, like, look at the good Godfather movies. We won't talk about part 3. And then, like, let's picture Penguin coming up in the ranks of organized crime and give us something like that. Like your idea of, rather than a sequel to the Joker, this made so much money, they're going to want to follow this. But instead of the Joker, I like your idea of, let's get another non-super powered sort of gritty villain, and let's tell his story in a standalone way so anything can happen and there's no rules, and just have fun with it. Or not, I wouldn't call this fun, but just try to make the best movie you can make without breaking 60 mil.
I think the next movie should be Calendar Man in a Ken Burns style documentary movie.
Oh, gee, I was going to go for like Kite Man and the classic Fairley Brothers comedy, but
so one of the things that we're kind of like dancing around, at least I have, is we really haven't spoken about Joaquin Phoenix in this movie.
I think we should. I think that's what we should talk about more than anything else.
Yes.
First off, I liked the idea of casting Joaquin Phoenix for the Joker because he is a weird looking dude. Like even in the roles where he's handsome, he's still weird looking. He's got he has congenital defects. There's nothing he can help about it. He's got a winging scapula. He had a cleft palate, and you can still see the results of that on his face. You can see he has that weak shoulder. He has a little bit of a barrel chest on his rib cage. I mean, he was just born, like, the fact that the guy was born with at least 2 deformities, and he's a huge Hollywood star, gives me a little bit of faith in humanity.
Yeah. Listen, man, if you've got the chops, Hollywood, they tend to do okay.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I would say every once in a while the right thing happens.
Yeah.
Listen, Clint Howard has a career. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but Clint Howard isn't pulling down Joker
yet.
And I mean, Clint Howard. Well, I was about to say Clint Howard didn't have an older, more handsome, more talented sibling, but never mind.
Oops.
Yes, he does.
But Ron Howard didn't go to the Viper Lounge and meet an early demise.
That is true. So, Adam, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of his performance as the Joker?
I went into this entire thing with like super low expectations. I did not want to be overhyped for it and everything, but you obviously couldn't help but hear some of the things, winning the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival and people talking Oscar stuff. And like, again, you want to try to push all that down, but man, oh man, when you watch this, if that ain't what comes to mind. It is an amazing performance. He's doing 8 billion things on the screen at the same time. It's a layered nuance. I love how he attacks, how he approaches the laugh of the Joker, which I thought was a really fantastic thing that we had not seen from any other actors. Where really that is just a kind of a defense mechanism to where if he doesn't know how to.
It's from an organic brain injury. It's something called pseudobulbar affect. And it's because he was abused as a kid. He got head injuries, and now it's like he's miswired. His emotions don't respond properly that way. But no, it's more than just a defense mechanism. I mean, it's honestly like compare it to if your bladder, you had nerve damage in your bladder and you couldn't help it but lose your urine regardless of whether you went to the bathroom or not. You were incontinent.
Man,
so think
that's
of it like
what we should have named the Watchmen podcast.
the incontinent bladder.
No, lose your urine.
but it's called emotional incontinence. So it's all hardware. It's not software. Like, a defense mechanism.
Oh, that's a really good way of putting that, Bruce. I would never have put those two things together, and now I understand it completely. Seriously, I'm not being sarcastic, even though my voice sounds like it.
You can't help it. You were born that way.
Sexy. You're right. So here's what I think of Joaquin Phoenix's performance, and this is really the secret joy that I take out of this movie and his performance specifically, is that we are no longer going to get the arguments of who is the best Joker anymore. I think what we're all going to take away from this eventually, 10 years, 15 years from now, if there is still nerd culture, I think that what we'll take away from this is that it doesn't matter who is the better Joker. It's that there's different performances as the Joker. For a couple of years there, the arguments over is Nicholson better than Ledger, and we've ourselves had conversations like that on this show. I think that it just depends on who the actor is and what they're going for as Joker, because he's terrific, and it's a completely different version from all the other versions we've seen previously, and it's pretty great. I think that he was able to do something that the last actor certainly couldn't do, where you enjoy watching him be the Joker, and I think that that's the secret gold of this movie, is that the arguments over who's the better Joker are probably going to end with this movie.
Oh, I don't think they will. Unfortunately, it's one of those arguments I think will stick around just so people can spend more time talking about who they don't like than who they do.
Well, I think a lot of that really does come down to the untimely death of Heath Ledger and everything, and that's always going to kind of stick for people as a particular, like a what if kind of thing. There's always going to be the person that if Heath Ledger was the Joker at the right time in your life, when you start watching these movies, he's going to be your favorite no matter what, and there are probably some folks that this is going to be their favorite Joker no matter what. There's always personal reasons that don't go into just the quality of the performance, but something I really like about this actor, about Joaquin Phoenix, over Heath Ledger, is just how weird looking he is. I mean, Heath Ledger, man, he's got to work hard to get himself down to a 9 from a 10. He's just a handsome guy all the way around. Joaquin Phoenix, no problem making me think he's a sad sack. And some of that you can't help. Some of that's just birth. Heath Ledger can't help it that he wasn't born with a winging scapula and a cleft palate, So some of that is just physical appearance. So some of that works for me more with Joaquin Phoenix. But I also like the way that near the end, when he gets his suit on, he gets his hair dyed, he has his makeup on, he's walking down the stairs and suddenly smoking the cigarette. And I'm thinking for just a split second, like, wow, he's got the Heath Ledger swagger, like hiding behind this makeup and hiding behind that suit is giving Arthur some confidence. But then as soon as he gets challenged, he turns back into the Arthur we know. Like, he doesn't, it doesn't do an unrealistic flip of the switch and suddenly now he's the Joker. He's still Arthur in there, which is kind of fun to me. Well, I mean, part of that, but like as the movie goes on and his progression and everything, and then we see that, and that's why I mentioned the opera balletic sort of thing of this is like after the first subway shooting and everything, him running away, and then the dance that he has there, that's like his first metamorphosis in this thing, and he does it 3 times. And but really, he continues to become more the Joker, if you will, through each one of these.
Man, you want to talk about something also where it is something that you think that you're watching when you watch the trailer, and it's something completely different in the movie. That is the moment right there, because it feels like when you're watching the trailer, like you're watching something different than what is actually happening at the time.
And I don't think his metamorphosis happens in stages. I just think it's a slow metamorphosis. So you see it expressing itself a little bit at a time. And it's not about when something happens in his life. It's not about when he confronts Thomas Wayne. It's not about when he gets angry at his mother and finds out the truth about her. It's not about when he finds out he's adopted. The metamorphosis starts when they cut off his prescription medicine. And that's something I think is real important to take, because I think a lot of people are going to miss that, and they're going to look for the comic book story-driven parts, like Batman became a crazy psychopathic vigilante because he saw his parents gunned down. So the comic book story, he finds out that his mom lied to him, that he was adopted, that she allowed him to be abused, that he flips the switch and kills his mom. But the truth is, it all starts when funding gets cut for him to receive proper psychiatric care.
Yeah.
So he loses his medicine and he becomes the Joker we see on screen. And I think there's a lot to take away from that, a lot more valuable maybe to take away from that than just simply the confidence that he gains or whatever else some people may see in it.
So because we got to wrap up here pretty soon. What do you think of the tricks? What do you think of the comic book tricks in this movie?
Well, I'll be honest. I would have been fine if the Wayne family weren't in it at all.
Me too.
But to me, it's really distracting to me to see a man on screen that I know is Alfred and have no one call him Alfred. Like I don't know why that kind of bugged me a little bit.
No,
it didn't bug
that.
me enough to pull down my whole enjoyment of the movie or anything. But when we're talking about comic book tricks, it's like they're trying to they do a few things. Like I feel like this is a movie made not beholden to comics at all, except it's glaringly obvious when the pearls break in Crime Alley and when Alfred's standing there, but nobody's calling him Alfred. Like there are a couple of moments that I think it didn't need.
Right.
But I did like how, if and they're going to do that, which they did, I'm glad that it wasn't him. I'm glad that it was just a regular another guy on the street who was just participating in the mayhem. I thought that was a better touch than just making him being specifically responsible to it, as opposed to just being, for lack of a better term, an accessory to all of that, having, kind of started this whole
Yeah, I'm
debacle.
glad they didn't go full Jack Napier, Tim Burton. At least that could still potentially be Joe Chill.
Too. I totally agree with you.
And they did it in such a way that I honestly think the Joker has no direct responsibility for what happened, but Bruce would absolutely believe it was the Joker's fault, because from the outside, if you're not with Arthur the way that we are through the movie, from the outside, it really looks like these people are all working for him. But it's just sort of like they saw something on the news and kind of formed this loose cult. And I have every confidence they're going to be working for him within a few months. But at this point, it's just the city that's fed up. It's the French Revolution, only in Gotham City.
And I heard somebody say something that was really good that I guess I'd never really thought about before. But, when we have all these people, this giant, riot and everything at the end, his big kind of, stand on top and everyone cheering and all this kind of jazz, you'd always ask yourself is like, where did Joker get all these henchmen? Why would they get and you can understand why these people in this situation would follow this guy. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm
going to say borrows pretty heavily from the same way that Gotham handled the same phenomenon. I mean, done much better in this movie, perhaps, than on Gotham. But, the Joker gets his following when he gets seemingly killed. And then all of a sudden, all the people who hate the police and hate the city that they live in and the corrupt government kind of loosely form their own affiliation, like Juggalos or something. And eventually they all come together under Jerome when he comes back from the dead.
That's pretty much how Juggalos operate.
You just ruined this movie a little bit for me.
Oh my God!
Are we all in agreement though? I mean, all three of us have absolutely positive things to say about Joaquin Phoenix's performance, right? There's no dissenting opinion there.
I don't know if there's anything I can say negative about that at all.
He's great. He's just great.
And before this movie, how did you guys feel about Joaquin Phoenix? Because I was a fan before this movie. I never thought of him as playing the Joker until it was announced, and then I couldn't think of anybody else doing it. I do think this movie dodged a real bullet, because if they cast anyone other than him, I just don't see it working. Like, I can't see this movie with anybody else in that lead role.
I actually have an actor who I think would be great in this, but no one would ever give him the chance to do it.
Roddy
and
McDowell.
I can't tell you until after the movie comes out that he's in now. that we can discuss it then. But
okay,
he's an actor that you would never think of in this role, but hopefully his career path changes after
Jason Alexander.
Exactly.
I got it.
You
First
never
try.
thought you wanted a bald Joker, but you do.
There were some fun supporting characters too. Brett Cullen, the guy who plays Thomas Wayne. I just want to try and just like a lightning round before we wrap this up.
No, that's good.
I love Brett Cullen. He's one of those guys that I think I've seen him in 100 things, but I actually haven't. He just kind of has that everyman quality. Alec Baldwin, originally cast in that role, couldn't do it. Yeah, couldn't do it for some reason. They brought in Brett Cullen, who I think is a great fill-in for Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin, I'm sure, would have been good in the role, but I'm worried we would have saw maybe too much into that role because we see the things that Alec Baldwin does outside of this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Brett Cullen, he's a guy, whenever they need somebody to play like John Wayne, only like the real jerkwad personal life John Wayne, like I think Brett Cullen's the guy you call for that movie.
He's also the only guy who was in the Nolan Batmans who's in this.
I didn't know that.
He's got a little Chris Cooper about him, this guy.
Yeah, he does have a little Chris Cooper about his voice. That might be why I feel like I've seen this guy in 100 places and I haven't.
Yeah, I think that may be it because he's got that vibe.
And then my first response when I saw his name was, wow, he didn't sound anything like Optimus Prime. Then I realized that was a different Cullen
That's
last
Peter
week.
Cullen, you dumbass.
I really liked the little person.
Oh, he was great.
The British little person. Like, is he? Why is he not in every Guy Ritchie movie? Like he seems to. He should have a very secure career in every Guy Ritchie movie, no matter what it is. Like I could see him in Sherlock Holmes. I could see him in whatever this new movie coming out is. I mean, he just seems like he should be Guy Ritchie's like favorite supporting actor.
Could see him as young Bruce Wayne.
Oh man, I could see him as Big Figure in Watchmen.
I mean, he had 3 episodes of Game of Thrones, it looks like. I think that's the thing that most people would probably know him from.
Yeah. I remember him very clearly from Game of Thrones. He's who played Tyrion in the Mummers play over in the New World or whatever you call it.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
With the fake big nose. But
yeah.
It looked to me like he had cauliflower ear. Like I want to picture that at some point this guy was a real ruffian and got in a lot of fights and stuff. That's why he has the cauliflower ear.
As good as any I could think of, yeah.
Yeah, and of course we already talked about Zazie Beetz. Beautiful lady, loved her in this role. She was really believable as that single mom, beautiful from 1981. Really good.
Quick thing, because this is I work at a movie theater, and of course we've all seen it and everything. So I've been talking to it about a lot of people. What do you guys think? I want to get your take on this. When he shows up in her apartment and everything, do you think that he kills her, or is it?
I don't think he kills her. I don't think he kills her. By the rules of this movie, I don't think he kills her.
I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't get that either.
I didn't either.
For the same reason he let the little person live, he doesn't kill her.
Yeah, that's the impression that I got. But I talked to a couple people that were just like, "Oh yeah, he almost certainly killed her," and I'm like, I don't think so. I don't.
It's one of those great ambiguous scenes because we don't see her again, do we?
But I also said at the same time too, it's just like I don't know, and I'm happy not knowing, and frankly, I don't need to know. And then, having that open is kind of fun. Did he? Didn't he? Who knows? Who cares? But it's good.
So I think I've run through the supporting actors that stuck out in my mind. I don't know if you guys have any others you want to just thumbs up, thumbs down to.
I just want to say the score is fantastic. It's super just kind of, I mean, it's a little over the top and bombastic, but that's obviously clearly what it's meant to be. And it works really well. And again, Joaquin Phoenix's performance, he's got about 4 or 5 different, almost personas that he's doing with all of this stuff and how they flow in and out. Oh, I do want to talk real quick. The makeup, I thought, when I first saw the makeup and everything, I did not like it. I was not really a fan. Of course, I was the same way with Heath Ledger. And like Heath Ledger, this grew on me, and I actually really like this makeup now. And I think for this movie, for what they're doing, it works really, really well. It's super iconic. You can see it from a distance and still know exactly what you're looking at and everything, and I think that's super smart. So I just want to throw that out there as well.
Also, we would be loath to mention Mark Maron in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to bring that one up too because I heard somebody mention his name briefly, and then we flew right past it talking about De Niro. But man, once again, I knew nothing about the casting. So when Mark Maron shows up, a movie that I'm already enjoying, I enjoy just a little bit more because, like, Mark Maron, the person he has become, is perfect for a dirty, gritty throwback to 70s style cinema.
Totally agree.
They're like, we don't even have to put him in makeup or hair or nothing. He just kind of comes on,
He's just
set.
got it.
Like, we got
Like,
you these
I get-
glasses. And there's like, all right, sweet. Good to go.
I get the idea hanging around him in real life is like living in a 70s Scorsese film.
A lot more cats.
Yes, but with more cats. That's correct. All right, before we get down to our final reviews here and everything, we have to talk about the most important thing that anyone can talk about on any podcast or just even around a coffee table, whatever. It's how this movie relates back to Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. Everybody else around the coffee table, I have a prepared statement. Jeff McCarthy is probably best known as the character Holes Gang in RoboCop 2, a movie so bad Peter Weller said, I don't want to be the RoboCop no more. But Jeff McCarthy is also in Joker, where he's the 44th billed actor, playing a character named NCB News Anchor. And he does such a terrific job pretending to be a news anchor that he looks like a news anchor. Some people would say that when Jeff McCarthy stepped into his role in this new Joker movie, he had some really big shoes to fill because everyone remembers all the other news anchors we've gotten in other movies featuring the Joker. I think everyone remembers the anchorman played by Bruce McGuire in the 1989 Burton Batman movie, and everyone, myself included, thought the job Bruce McGuire did in 89 Batman was the definitive news guy for a Batman and Joker movie, and it would never be matched. Until The Dark Knight. And we heard some casting rumors, and I remember thinking when director Christopher Nolan cast Michael Sherwin as Gotham TV reporter that he was too young for the role, but early reports said it was a great performance, not just for a superhero movie, but for a movie period. And I thought to myself, well, he must be good because the one thing everyone keeps talking about in The Dark Knight is just how great Michael Sherwin is as Gotham TV reporter. And he was great. I know that Nolan had plans to bring him back as Gotham TV reporter for the third movie, but unfortunately, Michael Sherwin passed away just after principal photography ended. And we lost someone truly great. But even more importantly, we lost that other Gotham TV reporter role we all wanted. And that's when nerd culture started getting into the never-ending arguments about who's the best Gotham news guy. Some would say Sherwin, others McGuire, and then David Ayer, director of the movie Suicide Squad, told us that if we thought Michael Sherman was great, well, we need to get ready for Kevin Hicks' performance as news anchor. That Kevin Hicks was going to go method as the news anchor, then that he'd be in the third, that he would be in the third movie. I don't know where that came from. Sorry, everybody. That's called proofreading. But when the movie came out, I was completely disappointed by Kevin Hicks' performance. And I know that I wasn't alone. Now, Jeff McGuire is the news guy in Joker, and he's great. And hopefully we nerds can just come to the realization that if you get the correct guy playing the news guy, actors will do a terrific job. And they did great by hiring Jeff McGuire. And maybe they saw his talents in the movie Cliffhanger starring Sylvester Stallone. Jeff McGuire played the pilot in that movie, and when his character screws up, it feels like Jeff McGuire is totally incompetent at his job, but he isn't. He's just acting incompetent. And there you have it, HMPers. This week's Stallone connection is Jeff McGuire. By the way, Michael Sherwin is alive and well. I just needed to say that for the bit. Sorry for the lying for the sake of a hilarious comedy bit everyone will remember forever. Thank you. I'm Sean Kovacs. Thank you.
You're in the annals of history, man. So, just dig on it, all right?
Hey, Silas, in 30 years when you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I know you're not supposed to make that kind of joke, but,
It was a different time back in 2019. Different time indeed. Let's get down to it over here. Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. We have at the top of the screen there our Robin rating system. We don't do letters or grades here. We have our own cockamamie system. It's called the Robin rating system. Check it out. Facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. And while you're there, throw a like on that page. Why don't you? Bruce, where does Joker fall on the Robin rating system for you?
Oh man. Joaquin Phoenix has like a long-term relationship with a lady. Looking at him in this movie, that's just amazing to me. 'Cause he's a weird-looking guy. I got to say that again. But Rooney Mara, I'm a fan of Rooney Mara, so good for you.
Well, she's a weird-looking lady. It makes
She's
sense.
well, she's quirky and interesting looking.
Yeah,
for sure,
yeah. I mean, hey, beggars can't be choosers. Joaquin, be happy. He's a
I
weird
like how
guy.
we're acting like Joaquin Phoenix probably couldn't go and pull a lot of really hot ladies. I bet he could.
Hey, with the haircut he had to have for this movie and as skinny as he was for this movie, if they didn't know he was Joaquin Phoenix, if it's just guy in Subway trying to talk to you, you're probably not talking to him.
It's interesting,
You know
though,
what I mean?
seeing him on the talk show circuit, and he's back up to his regular kind of walking around weight and everything, and man, he did lose a lot of weight.
Yeah. And probably drew on some personal bizarre appearances on a talk show for the way he performed it in this one.
You know what's
But
even
anyway,
hold on real quick though. You know what's even weirder than that though? But you talk about like that Letterman performance and everything. But there was a really look at this up on YouTube. He was on Jimmy Kimmel doing an interview and everything. The interview's fine and stuff, but they went to the video where like a behind the scenes that supposedly somebody had given them where he's fighting with
fake.
the cinematographer. You think that was fake, him fighting with the cinematographer?
It was fake. It's been revealed to be fake. He was making a joke at the expense of Christian Bale,
okay.
who once played Batman. Yeah, it was his good for you. Do I go out here and mess up all your work? Yeah, he was
like
making
it
fun of
just
Christian Bale.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. It didn't
yeah,
I'll put it this way. It didn't land.
Yeah. Do a quick Google. Do a quick Google search.
Okay,
You'll find out that
okay.
that was a hoax. He is not above hoaxes on talk shows, apparently. Anyway, this
Fair.
is a good movie. This is a really good movie. I can't imagine you do a whole lot to make this movie better. Now, there are people that aren't going to like this movie, and that's okay. You don't like this movie. You probably don't like Taxi Driver either. Some folks are going to go back and say, why do people call these 70s weird movies like Midnight Cowboy and The Graduate and stuff? Why is this considered the golden age of cinema? Some people just don't like those kind of altruistic films, and that's going to hold true here. There's no way they could change this movie so that everyone would like it and have it still be a good movie. I think it was done wonderfully. I can't do anything other than give this a Dick Grayson, even though, like Sean said, it's not one you're going to throw on at a party and want to watch again. Hey, I'm the first one to say, as much as I love The Dark Knight, I don't like to watch that movie a whole lot. The Joker, when done well, is not always pleasant. Even though you admire what he's doing, it's not a pleasant experience. You need a recovery time. But this is a Dick Grayson to me.
Sean?
The first one I've given DC in a while, I think.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Sean, what do you got?
For me, it's a Tim Drake. It's a very good movie, but it kind of feels like something that, I'm just gonna say Tim Drake. I'm not gonna go deep into it. It's just a Tim Drake.
And maybe we'll revisit it at the end of the year. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it couldn't hurt. I'm going. We're going top shelf with this too. Dick Grayson all the way. I think this is a fantastic film. I understand sentiment such as Sean. Watch it and then forget it. But if indeed you like going down and hustling the depths of cinema depravity every now and then, you could do a whole heck of a lot worse than this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I do think he'll absolutely 100% get a Oscar nomination. Good chance for a win here, but if he does, I am also afraid for what that does to everyone thinking, oh, all I got to do to win an Oscar is to play Joker, and I hope that doesn't become a thing. So,
oh man, I don't know. They like to give that for best supporting, not for best actor.
See Jared Leto.
Well, yeah. Well,
Hey, and I'll defend Jared Leto. For all I know, he was told to do what he did. You know what I mean?
I don't know about all of that, but I would.
Because he's won an Oscar before. A guy knows what he's doing, doesn't he?
I mean, and also all of the stupid offset antics from him. Like,
Yeah,
now
nobody
that's
told him.
uncalled
The
for.
things
No
that are
one
a
told
little
him to bring the used condoms.
And give a dead baby horse to somebody or whatever he did.
Yeah.
But this is a very different Dick Grayson than Guardians of the Galaxy. I do want to go on record with that one for very different reasons.
Oh, real quick here, because I almost forgot about it. One of our Patreon supporters, Alex, actually sent us a text here, And it's talking about Joker. Hey, guys, I'm typing this on my phone at a birthday party for a 9-year-old, so forgive all the typos and punctuation errors. As my creative writing teacher, Miss Tulip, said, there's used to say, always make them believe you can't read or write. Sorry, wrong podcast. Concerning the Joker, it was amazing. As a man who suffers from depression, I believe that the worst part of being depressed is that the world expects you to act like you aren't. I was scared to see something similar written in Arthur's Notebook. I saw the movie Thursday evening at the first showing in IMAX. At least 3 people walked out during the movie crying. People cheered when Murray was killed, and someone yelled, "Joker is Jesus." Well, you got to move out of wherever the hell you are, Alex.
Yeah. Quick.
When they carried Joker out of the police car after his arrest. I'm curious to see if you had similar experiences with the crowd. Everybody was super quiet and everything, and also in my crowd. I can't speak for you guys. When the movie was over, I had the urge to put on Joker makeup and burn down the mall, but I realized my tax dollars would be used to rebuild the damage, insurance premiums would go up, and I had to get up early on Friday. So I walked over to Hooligans and had a fish tacos and a bourbon and thought being a reasonable adult sucks. Alex the Owl, a.k.a. Brass Knuckles, over at patreon.com/HMP. Alex, thanks for your email, buddy.
Yeah, and we never even mentioned that, but I'm glad Alex brought it up. Second, that sentiment. The worst part about suffering depression is the world wants you to act like you aren't. Yeah, I think that's something that maybe some folks can take away from this and give them a little perspective on things.
And
awesome points.
I do believe that this thing, if handled correctly by the correct people, could open up dialogues about this kind of stuff if and that was something that people wanted to do. Anyways, that is it, everybody, for this edition of Hero Movie Podcast. Next week, did we 100% decide what we were doing? Do we want to go with that?
30 Days of Night.
30 Days of Night. We don't know how we're going to find it on the internet yet, but we're going to figure out.
It's on Vudu for free with commercials if you're desperate.
Okay, so, there you go. You've got your assignment, everybody. Go check that out. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I have nothing to plug this week, man. I'm exhausted from Hocus Pocus, and I got to fly to San Francisco in a couple of days, and nothing I have is worth plugging at the moment.
Hocus Pocus, what could he be talking about? Head on over to patreon.com/HMP and find out for yourself. Sean?
I am Sweet Sean Z from the internet on Twitter at Sean Kovacs 4, where I post quite often on there.
He's a posting away, everybody.
Come find me.
And that is it, everybody. We're going to be doing the Watchmen podcast coming up not too far. You've got an appendix.
2 weeks, right?
Oh, my goodness, man, right around the corner here. Bruce has an appendix episode up already, so go check it out, the Redford Administration, wherever you find podcasts. And do us a favor because, this is going to be early. Throw us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And if you're getting one for there, do it for HMP as well. You're there. You're there already. Why not do it again, right? You know what I'm saying? So please do all that good stuff. Join us next week for 30 Days of Night. For Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
I started a joke which started the whole world crying. But I didn't see that the joke was on me. Oh no. I started to cry, which started the whole world laughing. Oh, if I'd only seen that the joke was on me. I started the whole world living. Oh, if I'd only seen, oh yeah, that the joke was on me. Oh no, that the joke was on me.